Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment or question comes from Lund. And this was in response to Korg Kronos 3, a game changer or just an update, a Sunday morning rant I did in January 2025. Lund writes, at 10.8 in your video regarding this drive, you said second disk can be whatever capacity you want. I put a 256GB in mine as a backup. It's worth mentioning that the 62GB primary disk is an industrial grade which offers data protection to the volume. Actually, the 62GB was wrong. And thanks for the comments. I wasn't aware that a 62GB one was an industrial grade disk, an industrial grade SSD. But that information was wrong. At the point I recorded the video, NAMM hadn't happened, but the data was being released to market about what was Korg Kronos 3 all about, and the specification on the website said it had a 62GB disk. Now, thinking about that in hindsight, especially when they started talking at NAMM, it kind of didn't ring true to me, because if they're putting 21GB of samples onto the SSD from factory ship, leaving the musician with 40GB for data doesn't sound like an awful great idea. Anyway, as NAMM rolled around, people started talking about it. It became apparent that the actual hard drive was 128GB, not 62 as previously said in that video. So apologies, that's a correction. But what I will say to my defense is that was what was written on the website when you went and looked up Korg Kronos 3 the day before I recorded the video. So that was a mistake on their behalf, and they've now since corrected it. It does say 128GB on the website. So there you go. It's 128GB, and you're quite right on the second thing is you can put, as far as I'm aware, it will support up to a terabyte. But whether that is, well, I know you can put 256GB SSD in there because I know people have done it. I think you can put 512GB in there because I think I know a couple of people who've done that too. But the board itself will support way beyond that. So whether they've tweaked the operating system to make that work, I don't know. But there you go. We will find that out in the fullness of time, I'm pretty sure. Next comment question comes from Sona Geek in response to how to check the firmware version on your Roland D-70. A video that was done in January 2017. And Sona Geek writes, is there sound difference between the 1.9 version of the operating system and the 1.0 version of the operating system? Now the problem with this, of course, is that many of the README bits between the various versions have disappeared into the world of time. I'm sure they exist somewhere, I just haven't found them. Now, my Roland D-70, when I got my D-70, was at version 1.10. So I can't comment on what 1.00 actually did or did not do. I know there were a number of things that weren't present in 1.10, that were present in later versions of the operating system. Now, there were between 1 and 1.1 a series of functionality changes, including to the filters. That I know, but I can't tell you specifically what they were. one of the other viewers of the channel wrote to me that he had an early version of the Roland D-70, and when they issued a later version, which he had to go and actually get somebody in a shop to open up, put the chip in, there were a whole raft of things. In fact, they rewrote a whole chunk of the user manual to cater for the changes. So there were quite a lot of changes, but as I say, I can't tell you exactly what they were because I don't know. I do know there were a lot. So between 1 and 1.01, 1.10, there would have been, I suspect, some tonal changes because the filters have been changed. And if you change the filters, by default, you're going to get some changes to the tonal properties. So that is a given. Moving between 1.10, 1.14, 1.18, and the final version, which was 1.19, as far as I can see from the documentation I've seen, these were kind of mainly functional fixes to the operating system. So, you know, it's meant to work like this, but it doesn't quite work like that, rather than tonal changes. I don't think any of those releases actually mucked around with the tones or the filters or anything in the tone path. I think it was all synthesizer functionality, you know, patch management, keyboard management, that kind of stuff, rather than processing the sound. One of the big changes between 1.10 and 1.18 was the handling of syshex and stop notes. I do know that because that is in. I've got the README for 1.19, and that specifically says that was one of the things they improved, so that it stopped the synth hanging. So hopefully that's been some use. Probably not a lot of use, but you know, everybody sort of kind of thought the D70 finished at 1.18. And it didn't. It finished at 1.19, but 1.19 was released quite a way after. So there was stuff in 1.19 that probably Roland had wanted to release for a while, but for whatever reason didn't. Hence the reason why it was pushed to market. You had to go through a main dealer to get it. So that's many years ago now.